I got all I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything. I got you and me. All I want, I got all I need.
Cool. Oh, I do have to say, marriage is the best. That's something I have to say every episode.
Okay, and is this where you read the ads from the sponsors?
Yeah, you could take the first one. Go ahead.
Oh, shoot. Axe body spray. No, I don't.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that does need to be addressed is that we were doing a giveaway these last couple of weeks.
Oh, sick.
And we had a listener not call in, but write in and say, hey, we want to donate for a date night giveaway.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was super, very sweet, very fun, and exciting that they were willing to do something like that. So what we did was we had people go on and leave a 5-star review on Apple. And so I think we're going to extend the giveaway one more week to allow for people to write in, and then we'll announce the winner next week. Unless that's against the rules.
Yeah, I think you should probably double check this just to make sure that you didn't get any entries earlier.
Well, yeah, and so that's part of the problem is like it could have shown up. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not even sure what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out. Not that many people wrote in, so I don't think that many people are going to be anticipating winning. So we probably shouldn't get too many legal issues out of it.
That's fair.
But it's fun to do. All right. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Josiah, and I love him dearly. He's one of my best friends. And we recently just finished up an opportunity to hang out. And Becca took the kids, and it was fantastic. And she is such a wonderful wife and mother to allow me to leave her in the capable hands of, taking care of the 5 kids. I think she's the capable one, not the 5 children.
I mean, your kids are great, so I mean, won't undersell those, but
they are.
Then.
So today, I'm going to talk to Josiah about his marriage and his how he met his wife, and going to go through some of the phase stuff that we've been talking about. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Peter. I really appreciate it. Marriage really is the best. Excited to be here.
So when you think about the model that your parents gave you, how would you describe that model and kind of maybe even some of the impact that your parents' marriage had on you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, without a doubt, they had a very big impact on a lot of aspects of how I view marriage. I'd say both positive and negative. As you're very well aware, I grew up in a very religious household, very strong Judeo-Christian values. And I was very fortunate that, my parents were a team. I had both parents in the household my whole life. They're still married to this day, and that's a really big blessing. Yet kind of at the same time, I mean, no marriage is perfect. So when you're in that home, you're very well aware of all the shortcomings there. And once again, don't like to say anything bad about my parents or their marriage or anything like that. But I do remember growing up, seeing a lot of good and a lot of things that I wanted to change, as an adult.
Yeah. What were some of like the biggest good things that you maybe are trying to now replicate, or something that you were wanting to take from their marriage, and what you saw the fruit of that was, and like replicate it in your own?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that one of the things that I love most about my parents' marriage is that they're an absolute team. So, like I said, they've stuck together through all these years. They've had their fair share of things they haven't agreed on, but when it actually came time to make a decision on something, they had each other's backs 100%. So there was never really any, never had any success trying to play my parents against each other. As a kid, when you do the whole like, oh, hey Dad, can I go do this with my friends? And he's like, I don't know, go ask your mom. And you're like, oh, hey Mom, can I go do this? I don't know, what'd your dad say? Like, we didn't try any of that because, they really did respect each other's authority. They really did appreciate each other. They had the same values. They had the same vision for their children. And so you weren't going to get away with any of that. And they backed each other up 100%. So I loved that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that unity is really important because kids seem to come into the world with a natural predisposition to find any sort of room in between what mom is going to say and what dad is going to say. And we see it all the time.
Sure.
At least the attempts. So that's really cool. That's a great part of the model. Were there other marriages that touched your life, or can you think back on any kind of relationships that you watched growing up that may have had an impact?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of obvious too, probably, but I guess I do. The first thing that comes to mind is I think about my grandparents on both sides. That definitely had a really big impact on us. I know that on both sides of my family, they actually came from broken homes, both my parents. So I didn't really ever know my paternal grandfather that well. Grew up with a grandfather, step-grandfather, I guess, on that side. And then my grandpa on the other side, I didn't know him because he died when I was really young, but he was also the second marriage for my grandma on that side as well. So that was something that showed me there was a lot to be desired, and some of the ways that some people do relationships. And it also gave me a real appreciation for my parents and their commitment to hold things together no matter what.
Do you think their decision, like their commitment to one another, was any way impacted then by kind of what they saw in their parents growing up?
100%. Yeah. I know that's something that really, really shaped both of them. I know that they both struggled in their own ways with that. Divorce is a really ugly thing, always. And yeah, I think that was one of the most important things to both my parents whatever happens, we're going to stick through this. We're not going to do that to our kids. Like I said, both really broken homes that they grew up in, and they didn't want that to pass on to the next generation, no matter what.
Totally. So, moving on to your current, your marriage, what you have right now. I'm curious, how did you meet your wife? What was that like for the two of you? Tell me a little bit about this story.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's not a whole lot of story to it, to be honest, but we were both single and searching, looking to mingle, I guess you would say.
Ooh.
And yeah, spicy.
Was there mingling?
No. But yeah, we were both doing the whole, online dating thing at the time. So neither one of us was having a lot of success with finding someone organically, through church, through school, through work, through the community. It just wasn't happening. So we thought we'd do what all the cool kids were doing and download some dating apps. And we just both happened to live in the same area, and I liked her profile. She liked mine, and the rest kind of unfolded from there.
That is a unique story in the sense of it worked for you guys.
Sure.
I feel like so many of the people who I run into, whether at work or even just, around the town, are having a lot of difficulty in establishing relationships through those platforms. I'm curious, when did you guys kind of find each other? What year was it when you guys started?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So we've been married for about 3.5 years. But we dated for almost 3 years before we actually got married. So this must have been, this was the end of 2019 is when I first met her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right before COVID.
Yep. So we beat that trend.
Nice. It's always good. Yeah. It's really interesting. I have a theory about kind of that dating world.
Sure.
And it's been developed over just meeting with lots of single individuals over the course of the last few years. And the idea goes something like our success on the dating apps has drastically changed. Like the ability to find someone of quality and to build up a strong relationship with them has somehow changed now due to the population, due to just like a season. It almost seems like the season for finding somebody on a dating app has kind of closed almost.
Sure.
And I understand that that's probably not the case for everybody, but the general consensus of the people that I'm talking to we're kicking that trend and we'd like something more organic.
Sure.
And so I think that you kind of beat the kind of beat the wave in that. You kind of you snuck in before that season closed off.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very grateful for that. Like I said, it worked out really well for us. We never would have met each other under any other circumstances. So, yeah, it really worked out.
That's cool. So, on Marriage is the Best, we're talking a little bit through the phases of marriage, talking about honeymoon, talking about disillusionment. We just finished an episode on like establishing teamwork. I'm curious, what was the honeymoon phase, kind of that early dating, early, like even into early marriage phase, like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Honestly, I'd say that our honeymoon phase, really kind of kicked in earnest after we got married for us. I mean, obviously we loved each other a lot and we were very excited about having a future together, but, that didn't really materialize a whole lot until after we got married. I think we were a little bit weird in that we didn't spend a whole lot of time together prior to marriage. Just both having really busy professional lives. I mean, pretty much we saw each other twice a week, and that was kind of our dating life. So that's one of the reasons why we took so long to kind of pull the trigger on that, is we really wanted to make sure that we got to know each other well. But yeah, so it was a big adjustment going from kind of seeing each other like basically on the weekends and the occasional weeknight, to, getting married, moving in together, and spending literally every waking hour with each other when we were home. And so, yeah, I'd say it lasted for probably close to the first 2 years of our marriage. I mean, we had, we had plenty of fights, but I would say that, yeah, it was really, we had a really, really charmed first couple of years. We were in a cute little apartment that was super cozy. Neither one of us had anything real crazy going on in our lives in terms of like family tragedy or family drama. So we were in a place where it's like we really got to do what we wanted to do with our spare time. Really just got to spend some time, get to know each other, and living what I think was a very charmed life for 2 years.
That's really cool. I wonder if the success of your relationship had anything to do with how infrequently you saw each other over the course of those like dating years.
How so?
I think that one of the fatal flaws in the model for dating right now is that it moves too fast, too quickly.
Absolutely.
And so you guys were able to avoid the, kind of the normal course of things when you kind of get stuck into that pattern of we're moving really fast, we're really excited.
Sure.
We're kind of accelerating beyond maybe what can be sustained or maybe what is healthy for like building a foundation that will last a bit longer.
Yeah.
And building a foundation that you can eventually commit to long term. And I think that flash in the pan, super fast kind of model often leaves people hurt, broken,
sure,
wounded, and yeah, it doesn't seem to work for people most often.
I could definitely see that. I think for us, I will say one benefit, at least I think this is a benefit. I don't know. I'm sure there's some downsides to it too, but I think that something that is fairly kind of unique about the infrequency of seeing each other is it did allow us over that long period of time to really kind of test out how we were going to, tackle life events as a couple. And, you do as much as you can to help your partner out, of course, when you're dating, but it's like when you're still living separate lives, separate households for that long period of time, you're not able to like overly compensate, I guess, for your partner in any area of life. So we didn't develop a level of dependency that I think a lot of couples do when they're just constantly together. Now, you might say that sometimes we both have maintained a little too much independence moving into marriage, and that was a separate challenge. But it did definitely cause us to kind of handle our own affairs and then provide maybe, hopefully, kind of a healthy level of support to the other person as they work through that.
Yeah, you're able to support one another while maintaining your independence rather than kind of losing yourself in the relationship or in the stress or in that season.
Sure. And neither one of us kind of, took over each other's lives in a way where it was like, oh, look, one person became dependent on the other to take care of, phone calls, stressors. It was, really just emotional support. Someone wasn't actually taking over every aspect of the other person's life in any way. So that was cool.
That is really cool. So the way that your marriage started is basically the exact opposite of the way that Rebecca and my marriage started. which is great. I'm
Sure.
so glad that that's the case. And obviously, there's a ditch on either side of the road. But I'm very great. I'm grateful for you because I think that there's a measure of health and stability when you can maintain that independence and move into a marriage season like that. Obviously, you still have to do the work because marriage is hard, and
course.
marriage requires a lot of us. But I think that's a great way to start.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know any other way, but it's worked out so far.
And you never will.
That's right.
You will never know another way. One of the cool things about your marriage is that in your marriage, you guys are from two different cultures.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how culture has impacted your marriage and what does that look like over time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's kind of weird. I don't really give too much thought to it these days, but yeah, I mean, I guess there's definitely some ways that's come into play. So I guess just to kind of lay a little bit of background. So I'm from here, obviously. Grew up in the West, Wyoming, a few other states.
A bunch
of states, yeah. But like very much, rah-rah American. And my wife, she's from Ecuador. So lots of things in common, a lot of things different. But I mean, at the end of the day, how we've both always seen is we're just both people. Our relationship is like any other relationship. We love each other. We aren't defined by our culture, So it's like I'm choosing to love her because she's who she is, and she's choosing to love me because of who I am. And like I said, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with where we come from. But I mean, that being said, it does occasionally rear its head where some of those differences clash. So that's definitely been a learning experience in some ways. But I don't know. I guess what specifically do you want to speak to on that?
Well, I'd love to learn more about like your personal experience of moving into your relationship. As it relates to being from two different cultures.
Yeah.
One of the things I hear you saying, right, is like we are not consciously acknowledging, like it didn't take up a bunch of space. Maybe I'll use it, say it that way. It didn't take up a bunch of space in our relationship.
I like that.
It wasn't something that bothered us or was like created much tension necessarily, like all the time. It wasn't, but every once in a while, right, it would come to the table and be like, oh, this is a cultural difference.
Sure.
So can you tell me, like, what were some of the times when culture showed up in the relationship and you were forced to kind of look at the cultural differences and kind of just work that through?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. I mean, so to start with, I think that when it comes to, we benefited from the fact that we both have a very similar value structure in many, many different ways. We both come from a very Judeo-Christian type background when it comes to how we view morality, how we view truth, and how we view relationships. So that was a really solid foundation for us to kind of try to build things from. And I don't think, frankly, it would have worked out otherwise. If we'd been too different, at some point in those 3 years, we would have said, well, good luck, and kind of move on to the next thing. But I think we were able to make it work and continue to make it work because of that foundation. That being said, yeah, I mean, there are some challenges. There's a lot of assumptions that we do make based off of our culture. Things that I'm trying to think of a specific example for you. I don't know. I think we've both tried to be very open-minded with each other. We've both tried to be kind of curious about each other's cultures as much as we can, and that's important. I try to be cognizant of the fact that, she's in my culture, living in my culture primarily, and I'm not living in hers. So I do think that puts a kind of a burden of responsibility on me to try to make her feel as welcome as possible and incorporate as much of her culture into our household and our practices. I think where I've kind of run into trouble is sometimes I feel like every now and then there'll be an assumption from one or the other that something is very important because it is in one culture, and then it's maybe not so much in the other. I think we've seen that a lot in like holidays, for example. So, we have some things in common, but, one very specific example is Christmas. So for my family growing up, the biggest day to celebrate Christmas was Christmas Day. Christmas Eve, we went to like a candlelight service. We went and got Chinese food afterwards, you know, and then
Wait, in your family growing up, you went and got Chinese food on Christmas Eve?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, we were
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we were always at church, and the only thing open on Christmas Eve at like 8 or 9 o'clock is the Chinese restaurant. So we'd go get Chinese food, take it home. And then for us, though, like the really big celebration was the next day, was Christmas. Whereas in my wife's culture, for them, the really big day to celebrate is Christmas Eve. So a bit of a misstep on my part was the first year. I didn't have anything planned. I didn't really even ask about it, to be honest. I was trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna be an awesome spouse. You know, I'm gonna have a surprise ready for Christmas morning, and I'm gonna make Christmas Day a really big deal. And for her, I think she just kind of assumed Christmas Eve is the big deal. So we're gonna have something special planned. I think he's preparing something and getting ready for that. And Christmas Eve come along, and there's nothing. And you know, she was feeling homesick. She was missing her family. She wanted to have like this heartwarming Christmas experience that, you know, she'd had as a kid and imagined us to have, you know, newly as a couple. And then it came the next day, but turns out that was a day too late.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How was that fairly impactful then? Like just on the emotional landscape of the relationship, was that something you guys had to like talk through, work through, manage the expectations, like Tell the story of like, what does Christmas Eve, Christmas Day mean to me? What does that mean to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We definitely had to sit down and have a conversation. And I will say this is kind of like one of my first opportunities to really brag about my wife. I think that one of her greatest qualities is that she very quickly processes things emotionally. We don't, you know, if we have a fight or an argument or a disagreement, that'll happen. Absolutely. But, you know, it's not, she doesn't hold on to a grudge for the next 2, 3, 4 days. And then we finally talk about it and resolve it a week later. It's like we get it all out in the open. And then after a couple of hours, like we're good. So it's really intense. And then she's able to quickly have those conversations that we need to heal and move on. So yeah, it was a matter of sitting down, talking, and just communicating that lack of communication and that lack of fulfilling the expectation that was on both sides. So now we do both. It's Christmas is a great time of year because we have a pretty awesome Christmas Eve and pretty exciting Christmas Day as well.
I think that is one of the biggest blessings that you can give to your spouse is like experiencing whatever hurt comes your way as a result of being married and then engaging that hurt.
Yeah.
You know, when I think that, you know, when we choose not to engage the hurt, it often just creates bitterness and more hurt, really. Yeah. And when we engage it, right, it's an opportunity to learn and to grow and to heal. And then I think that we deepen the intimacy in our relationships when we know those like deeper parts of our spouse. So without that, like sharing, you know, engaging that, in those conversations, the intimacy can't grow. So it's like it's difficult because you're growing the intimacy through hurt, you know, in some ways, or missed expectations create hurt, right? Like all those like little hurts. But I think that's so necessary. So it's a testament to your spouse, how wonderful she is, that she's able to kind of engage you in that and like put it on the table, work it through, and build intimacy.
Absolutely. And once again, really appreciate that it's usually something we're able to do, you know, right away. So we don't have to worry about, you know, our busy lives, drawing that out over an unnecessary amount of time. My back thanks me too, because that means I don't sleep on the couch much. So, you know, things are usually fixed by bedtime.
Nice. You don't even go to bed angry.
That's right.
Which is actually something that I probably should talk about in a future episode, because I think going to bed angry is very, very much okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. We don't need to talk about it, but
I'll have to tune in for that one because I do want to hear.
Well, I think I'll just caveat the idea with you don't have to go to bed like just because you're able to go to bed. Maybe I would update it. I say unresolved.
Sure,
you can go to bed unresolved.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. if it's not processed, like it doesn't do any good to be like, well, we're just gonna like
stay up till 3 a.m. trying to process it.
Yeah, that's not helpful.
Right.
Or just kind of burying it and being like, all right, fine, just not gonna worry about it. We're gonna just pretend it's not there
Right.
and then have it resurface later. So yeah, I guess those are two things that you could potentially run into.
Yep. Yeah. No. I absolutely. I think that my perspective on it has been shaped by many people's spouses coming and telling me he keeps waking, she keeps waking, he or she keeps waking me up in the middle of the night trying to resolve an issue and needing to create some space for, successful conversations versus unsuccessful conversations and when those things can happen. So I think going to bed unresolved can be appropriate in the context of we are going to take care of this. We're not necessarily going to bed in an angry state.
Sure.
We'll be unresolved for now, knowing that we're going to touch base on this as soon as we can. Probably within 24 hours would be my best bet on that one. But that's really cool. So so other cultural kind of dynamics that you've noticed, you mentioned values earlier, and I was curious about when you look at cultural values, do you think that she and your culture, like you guys have shared cultural values, or do you think that those values more exist in you as individuals? And so, like, I don't know, I guess, yeah. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, well, that's a good point. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it is actually a cultural thing. If you want to go really broad strokes from a high level, there is some similarity. In her family's everything. And that's something that is a very big part of who she is, both as a person and as a member of her culture. Same thing goes with religion for her as well. She grew up very, very Catholic. I mean, it is so embroiled in her identity and in the identity of her family. But that is something that she chooses to continue on her own. So, like I said, it is a little bit of both. And I think for us, I guess when you put it that way, I would say that our values come more from shared family values and shared faith values more so than the culture ones. And I think that allows us to overcome what differences arise from the cultural differences that we might have.
That's really cool. Values is such an important kind of marital foundation when you look at like long-term success, just having shared values. Sure. And I think that's really, it's cool that you guys have been able to find that, even though you come from very different places. Now, so this is a question from ignorance, but did she live and grow up then in Ecuador? Like, was she, I guess, how much time did she spend there, if you don't mind me asking? And like, how was her story like to get to America and all of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, she spent her whole life growing up in Ecuador. So, all through school, first job after college. She didn't actually come to the U.S. until 9 or 10 years ago at this point. So, it's pretty amazing. She grew up in Ecuador. She graduated from college there. She worked there. She decided that she wanted to move to the U.S. to learn English, essentially, so that she could kind of reach the next level in her job there in Ecuador. So she came here. She didn't speak any English when she originally came. Yeah, I know. And
That's bold.
I know. It blows my mind just thinking about it. But
she spoke French.
Yeah.
Mm. Cool.
That's what they speak in Ecuador.
Well, they're close to one another. France and anyways.
Yep. So she spoke Spanish. She came here, and she, like I said, the original plan was just to spend like a couple of years learning English. She decided she wanted to pursue a graduate degree while she was here. Once again, all under the impression that she was going to move back to Ecuador and use that to continue climbing higher on the company ladder. But I'd like to say that, she fell in love with me, and that's why we have such a beautiful story. But I think she, if you look at the timeline, that doesn't quite line up. No. So she graduated. She got a really good job here in the U.S., and she loved where she was at. She loved the community. She loved the friends she had made. She loved the opportunities that America afforded. And so it wasn't until several years after that I came into the scene. changed her life forever.
Swept her off her feet.
Something like that. I don't know.
Inspired her to stay in a place she had already decided to stay.
Didn't scare her off, so that's good
awesome.
at least.
Bare minimum, she remained. You guys got married, which is really fantastic. Very fun. Very fun. One of the things we talked about probably last month was this idea of disillusionment. So the idea that marriages start in this honeymoon phase. You kind of qualified that as like the first 2 years. I'm curious, could you speak a little bit to what did it look like for the honeymoon phase to start to make the transition into the next layer or level that marriages tend to get to thereafter?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think there's kind of a couple parts to that. So I think that, there wasn't like a clear-cut moment I can point to when I can say, oh, the honeymoon phase was over. But I do think that we had a little bit of a rude awakening pretty early on, like actually within the first few months of being married, like right away. So maybe we kind of had like a weird like disillusionment, then honeymoon, then kind of back to a little bit more of disillusionment again. So once again, like we hadn't spent a whole lot of time together, which, I mean, we had, and we spent a lot of time talking and experiencing different things, and we tried to do everything we could to predict the things that would come up in marriage. By talking about what's important for us and articulating our goals and how we envisioned, how we would reach that and what our life together would look like. But, that was all in theory, and we hadn't had a chance really to put a lot of that into practice yet. So I think, right away we were really hit with a lot of just the basic, like, what does it look like to live together things? How can we be functional, supportive roommates in addition to being, people that love each other and want to spend their lives together? I've shared with you before, my wife, she's a very organized, very clean person. And I love that about her. And I love how that she's brought out more of that in me. But my default is a little bit on the messier side, we'll say. So right away, we had to come to terms with trying to figure out, okay, what does our house look like? First off, like what's the default, and how do we get there? What does that look like? How are we going to divide up the chores? What does the division of labor look like? And when one person can look at the house and say, looks pretty good, I'm happy with that, and the other person looks at the house and is like, that's just not going to cut it. It doesn't work for me to just be like, well, it's good enough for me, so I guess you just need to take it from here and get it as clean as you want. I figured out, week one that doesn't work.
It's a bad answer. It's the wrong answer, if there is one.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that was, for us, that was one of the biggest things to adapt to, was just how do I love my wife by making sure that I'm doing as much as I can be doing to support what having a clean, comfortable, beautiful home looks like, somewhere that she can be proud of and feel safe and feel rested when she comes home from work and hangs out there.
Totally. And I think that actually a lot of people kind of find that early on. And I think in culture, there's an interesting cultural idea out there that says you should actually live with the person that you're dating before you get married so you can test it out and see if it works. What do you think about that idea?
I mean, I think there's pros and cons to both. Coming from a Judeo-Christian background and valuing approaching marriage from the way that it's most likely to be successful. I guess that's kind of how I see it. That's why, we adopted the values, or personally, I adopted the values and the practices that I did, why we didn't, move in together for other than just religious reasons before getting married. But some of the reasons why we didn't do that is because I do really believe that God's plan for marriage is the most successful plan for marriage if you're able to execute on that. So for me, that was a big part of it. Sorry, could you?
No, I appreciate that. I think when you look at I've been exposed to a few different studies that look at the divorce rates of people who live together prior to marriage and for people who wait. And the divorce rates actually do go up.
Sure.
If you're starting to live with one another. I think that there is a bit of an order of operations for marriage that makes it most successful. And just because this is the order of operations that makes it most successful doesn't mean that all successful couples do it this way.
For sure.
But if you want to give yourself, like you said, like if you want to give yourself the highest likelihood chance of a strong foundation that lasts a very long time, like marriage is supposed to last forever. And so when you can set your foundation up in such a way that reduces the risk of foundational cracks, we talked about a lot of those things today. Values create, strong foundational, a strong foundation for the relationship. One of those things is like how we orient moving into marriage.
Sure.
And even just you talking about all the questions that we ask one another, right? So we talked through all of these different things. We kind of took the idea of entering into a marriage as a serious thing. We honored the idea of marriage by addressing all sorts of different topics so that we could come into it as prepared as we possibly could, as well as acknowledging that the reality of marriage is that this is really hard. Like it's going to be hard too. And part of the hardship is we did it this way and we're finding that we have to now work through what does it look like to live together. And we had no idea that it was going to be maybe as hard as it was. Maybe we had some idea that it might have been,
Sure.
Might have been something, but that doesn't change the fact that the foundation was set up in such a way. And then working through those things, is still built from that same foundation.
Right, absolutely. And like I said, it was bumpy for a few months. And then because we had that level of commitment, and because we were just like, well, I hate to say it this way, but it's like we're stuck with each other, so we're going to figure it out one way or another.
Yeah.
And that kind of got us through those first few bumps. And then, like I said, it was pretty smooth sailing for kind of another 2 years there. And then kind of go back to your original question, I think it was actually after that 2 years is when we kind of hit that actual disillusionment, and we had that level of, okay, honeymoon phase is actually finally over. After the initial birthing pains, like that's when it finally kicked in, was at that time.
Did you find anything in particular at that time that was surprising, or did it feel very different to you as you kind of noticed or acknowledged that you guys, your bodies, your systems, your emotions, like all of it was kind of transitioning or phasing out? Not that you had the language or the idea at the time, right? Like you're not thinking, wow, we're moving into this next phase now. But did you notice like some other things about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, some of it is just an accumulation of small observations that you make over the time period until it reaches some sort of like, I don't want to say critical mass. That's a little too dramatic, but it becomes more noticeable because it's actually finally accumulated to something that is noticeable. So I think that, it was the little things, it's like, oh, she's not perfect, or which, more news to me than to her, I would hope, but maybe not. I think, joking aside, you both think that the other person is amazing, and they start to have little failures throughout all that time. Oh, okay, like, wow, this is what happens when he gets grumpy, or this is what happens if he didn't get enough sleep. This is what happens if, something doesn't go their way. And, I think that both of us by that time, the 2 years, we'd gotten to know each other pretty well on our bad days. Mm. And so the areas of our character that needed a little bit more refinement, and those were apparent. Those were the cracks, and this beautiful idealistic view of each other had really appeared. And then I think in combination, so that was the first thing, is it's like, okay, they're not so perfect. I still love them. They're still amazing, but boy, are they not perfect, And then I think you can magnify that with, for us, we started to have some of the biggest life events that we had encountered as a couple up to that point. Like I said, I think we were so blessed in the first 2 years of our marriage. We got to we got to play the course on easy mode, because we really didn't have a lot of outside things that put a lot of pressure on our marriage. And so, yeah, that happened that changed about 2 years in, and we started to really get put into the pressure cooker, and that just made all those little small observations become more and more apparent. And it brought brand new, issues to light as well that up to that point hadn't really had a chance to shine yet.
How do you think having 2 years, which is what a gift that is to enjoy the marriage? And I'm sure, well, no, I mean, I think you said it. I think it was easier. There was this season of ease within the marriage. How do you think that having that impacted your ability, from the context of your foundation, to move into this next season where now there's more pressure, there's more intensity, maybe there's more stress, you're making bigger decisions?
I mean, that's an interesting question. Once again, I feel very blessed to have had that time. And I guess there were some ways we were absolutely stronger after those 2 years than we were prior. But I think there is also something to be said about having something to overcome earlier on in a marriage, because if it's easy, you're not really working that hard toward, if you think what you're doing right now is ideal, what are you orienting yourself towards as a couple? And it's just, you just want more of what you currently have.
Yeah, and maybe what happens when it changes.
Yeah, so I think you almost have to have some adversity in your marriage in order for you to actually grow, because you get comfortable and you just kind of stop putting the effort in.
Yeah, intimacy grows through hardship and working through things together, overcoming. And so not having to maybe overcome as much because of the ease that you guys were fairly established just in life as people.
Right.
And so the ease that you had created for yourselves meant that there was a kind of an easy season. And then all of a sudden it's maybe not all of a sudden, but then it's hard. The phase 3 that we talked about just recently was moving from disillusionment into teamwork. So kind of the idea of now that we're kind of working through all of these difficult things, the fade of how we see each other, understanding that these are real people. I'm a real person. I'm married to a very real person. How are we setting ourselves up for a future where we've worked through the things that we need to work through so that we can really pull together in unity into the next phase or season of relationship? I'm curious, how do you see your guys' system setting yourselves up for success as you move toward that teamwork idea?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that it is something that's had to become a lot more intentional. Because like I said, I mean, early on in the marriage, if you're not pressed for time, if you're not pressed for, if you're not facing struggles as a couple, you can kind of deal with things at a slower, simpler pace. We didn't really have to schedule a date night, once a week, because we didn't have kids. We didn't have many responsibilities outside of work. We both work 9 to 5. We come home, and every night was date night. And that can have its own problems too. But the thing is, we were having so much quality time together that, we were never feeling he or she doesn't value me. Right. It was, we love each other. We love spending time together. We do everything together. And so there was a level of closeness that I think developed naturally as a result of that. But, as life gets more complicated and as more and more things start to happen, you really do have to take control of the direction of your marriage as opposed to just kind of letting it unfold. So, we're still working through a lot of this, but we've had to be a lot more intentional about carving out times where we specifically communicate about what's going on in the relationship, carving out time as our lives have gotten busier and crazier, making sure that we're having that quality time. We're having a date night. Or in some cases, we're having time alone. We still don't have kids. We still have a lot more time on our hands than a lot of couples probably do that are married. So sometimes it's, are we making sure that our approach to how we spend our time is healthy for our relationship, whether that's time together, doing something fun, time together doing something important, planning, building, working through things, or is it intentional time apart to make sure that we're still maintaining enough of our own identity, enough of our own, I hate the word needs, but are we getting a little bit of alone time to pursue our own individual interests and to spend time with our friends?
I prefer balance.
I like that.
I adore Rebecca, and I still need to balance the time that I spend with her versus the time that I spend with friends, spend with a mentor, spend in solitude. I think different people obviously need different levels of those things, but I think that all people need them.
Absolutely.
It's just the level might be expressed a little differently. And so I think that there's a pitfall I guess I like the idea of the ditches, because you can go too far to one side and both sides have problems, right? So the ditch of we don't ever spend time alone versus the ditch of what would the other ditch be? We don't ever spend time alone versus we spend lots and lots of time separate.
Yeah.
And so pitfalls on both sides. So you're moving through it. You're working on it. You're being intentional. I love all of that. Date nights are important, and having those time and space for hard conversations. That's awesome. I actually do ask. Oh, you know what? Okay, so I forgot one question.
Awesome.
I actually wanted to ask you. So we were talking about disillusionment, right? We were talking about how you guys were moving through that. I wanted to ask you, what is one thing that your wife has had to face in her breaking of the illusion for you?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think one of the areas that I personally struggle most, or she would say I struggle with most, is tackling certain areas of life with a sense of urgency. So once again, this was kind of a big personality difference that we had between the two of us. So she is very much a type A in the best way possible. She's very organized. She's very if there's a problem, I'm going to fix it right now. Doesn't matter what else is going on. She'll drop everything. She can be tired, stressed, you name it, but she's going to deal with that problem right then and there if she thinks that she needs to deal with it. Whereas, and you've known me for quite some time, I'm a little more kind of laid back. I'll get to it. I'll absolutely get to it as soon as it makes sense for me to get to it. Sometimes that's that same day. Sometimes it's later in the week. Sometimes it's next month. So I think that, for her vision of me is, a strong, independent, protective, husband that's able to take whatever life throws at us and, shield her from that by taking care of that problem. That was probably a little bit what she was kind of projecting how she wanted me to be as a husband. And to be fair, I mean, there have been times where I've tried to, as someone who very much loves and treasures my wife, protect her and take care of things that come her way. But it does tend to be a little bit more on my own timetable. So unfortunately, I think that for her, part of that disillusionment was realizing that I want him to deal with it now. And he doesn't always deal with it now. Even when I've asked him to deal with it now, he hasn't always dealt with it now. And so, that required some growth on my part to try and be a more reliable, consistent, proactive husband and partner. But for her, it's also just okay, his brain doesn't work the same way mine does. He's not purposefully avoiding it. He's not avoiding it. He just, sometimes he needs a little gentle reminder or a little nudge.
Right. Awesome. I love it. So if you were to give advice to someone in a dating season right now, so 2026, they're in the dating season, looking back on your experience and what you know from your own story, what sort of advice would you give to that person?
Well, as an old man at heart, I give a lot of unsolicited advice to people. Some of it's actually good occasionally, I hear. But I always tell people that don't give up hope. It only has to work once. So when I'm talking to my single friends or, people who are trying actively to find someone and they're discouraged by it, that's a lot of people these days. I have a lot of coworkers, a lot of friends and acquaintances that just, they don't know where to find someone. They're on the dating apps, they're going places, talking to people, and it seems really bleak right now for a lot of them. But the wonderful thing about marriage is if you really do believe that it's forever and that's what you're committed to doing, it only has to work once. You know, I can't tell you, before I met my wife, how many people that, you know, I swiped right on the dating app, how many people that I matched with and I went on dates with, and it was just a complete waste of time. There are so many attempts that I had at a relationship that just didn't work out. But the thing is it only needs to work once. So get back out there, keep swinging. Don't lower your standards. Don't settle. But at some point, if you keep looking, you're going to find someone, and that's all that matters, because at that point, you know, you have each other forever. So it's both a word of encouragement and a cautionary tale, I guess.
If somebody was in a season where they were engaged, so looking forward toward marriage, they're in a little bit of a different season, but there's a bit in between, what would you say to someone engaged right now?
That's a great question. I would, boy, this is going to sound terrible, but it's not too late. So don't rush it. That's wonderful that you think you found someone that is worth spending the rest of your life with. It's even more wonderful that they think the same thing about you. That's awesome.
Especially knowing you.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a quarter.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Heard that a time or two. But no, all joking aside, I mean, it really is the most important decision you're going to make, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So don't rush into it. You know, get good premarital counseling. Make sure that you're really covering your bases on setting yourselves up for success. And if you're both still on the same page after going through that process, you're both still very much in love and wanting to spend your life together, then that's awesome. I don't think you're ever going to say, you know, oh, wow, I regret being engaged for another 3, 4, or 5 months. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who look back at the decision they made and they said, oh, wow, like if I'd only known, you know, X, Y, or Z before getting married, maybe that would have changed my decision, or maybe we at least could have tackled it a little bit sooner and saved a little bit of the heartache earlier on in the marriage.
One of the things that I have found is that some premarital work actually happens through like resources, books and things like that. One of the things that I run into a lot is that people are using book resources to work through questions that are important to know will affect the rest of your life, right? If you continue to kind of if you continue to pursue this route of commitment to a person. So there's a couple of different books out there. 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged is one of them. And I know that there's actually a bunch of different versions of that for different people of different value structures, et cetera.
Yeah, I read that one.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Did you use it?
A little bit. I mean, I'm not going to say that I faithfully, you know, applied every 101 question to our relationship, but, you know, it was really good food for thought. It did raise a couple of things that I was like, oh, I don't know. That's a really good question. And we had some really good conversations based off of that.
That's awesome. So something like that, whether it be, I mean, you could even find it on a website. You could, you know, Google it, honestly. Ask ChatGPT, whatever you want to do. There's lots of resources out there to spark those different kinds of conversations that you maybe just didn't think of having. And you're never going to solve any of the going to solve any of the problems that you're going to run into, right? So the idea isn't have all of these conversations so that you don't have trouble. It's start these conversations now, understand what that looks like, sounds like, feels like, and then you will be more prepared to continue to have those conversations as you move in.
Absolutely.
So what if somebody is not engaged and they are currently married in 2026? What kind of advice, what kind of insight would you give to them?
Like newly married, or just what's my hot marriage tip for the year?
Think of your best insight. Think of like whatever you would want to say, regardless of like the season. They're married. You could speak to newlyweds. You could speak to anything you want.
I think what I would probably say is, like just about anything in life, your marriage is you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Whether you're in a good place, bad place, or somewhere in between, it can always get better. It's not going to do that automatically. So, like I said earlier, it's the most important decision that you've made, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So it's up to you to safeguard that and to make it the best that it can be. So don't settle. Don't get too comfortable. You should really be having conversations with your spouse about what you want your relationship to look like. Dream big, put a plan in place to, make that happen, and make sure that you're at least taking small steps towards that every day.
I love it. This was super fun. Thank you so much for sitting down and hanging out and chatting about marriage. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're awesome. This is the end.
All I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything.